Hello, BookTube, and welcome to your Daily Penguin. We're going through my Penguin wall, author by author, era by era, and not all of it is predictable. Quite a bit of it is not. And today we are jumping around again. Who knows what we'll encounter next time. Today I get to show you a handful of books as opposed to just one. I often appreciate that because I don't think we're going to get done with this whole Penguin wall this year if we don't do quite a bit of bunching up. And today is 3 books, and I was delighted to see them. I was delighted that Penguin made them. Penguin may have made more than just these 3 of this author. I don't know. The author is John OHara. 1930s, 1940s, an incredibly prolific American author whose career spanned decades and is most closely associated with New Yorker magazine. And a while ago, in fact, I have the pub sheet in here. I think this was 2016 that this was done. A while ago, Penguin decided to bring out some John OHara in Black Spine Penguin Classics. It pleased him to no end. Sorry, I'm a little out of it. Oh, this was 2013. So before we started talking to each other, the first one is a novel about a woman who wakes up in strange circumstances. This is Butterfield 8. That was made into a famous movie that is now forgotten. The book is forgotten, but Penguin made it into a classic, a very nice thing, with an introduction by Lawrence Stein. And then another, a bigger and far more ambitious novel, 10 North Frederick, Penguin also made into a Penguin classic with an introduction by Jonathan D. And this is the story told in retrospect of the life of a great man, and centering a lot of that time on Gibbsville, the fictional quintessential American city and suburbs that OHara kept going back to in the course of his career. That he sort of gave us Gibbsville as a place where a lot of his stories were set. And this is an author who cared a lot about accurately depicting the urban and suburban lifestyle of the world where he was, not gilding it, not making it darker than it was, not misrepresenting it. And you wouldn't think that would be fruitful subject matter, but it's his white whale. It's just amazing what he does with those. And these, as far as I know, are the only 2 novels of John OHara that Penguin has published. He wrote lots of others, and they are all great. This is a fantastic, first-rate American author. And as great as his novels are, his short stories are even better. And Penguin came out with this volume, I think, also in 2013. 2014. This is the New Yorker, the New York stories, with a foreword by E.L. Doctorow. And these are, so as you can tell from the title, these tend to concentrate more on New York than on Gibbsville. But the short story is, OHara is fantastic at the short story. I was very happy to see the Library of America finally include him as well with a couple of volumes, and that also would have pleased him no end. But as much as it's a time saver to hold up 3 books by the same author, I should be holding up a lot more than this. And this in particular should be different. Very happy to see it. Very, very happy that it exists in the Penguin Classic line and therefore is amenable to schools, because schools are the way that an author like this will live. If he's not taught or remembered in schools, then it's unlikely that he'll live. But I would like a different volume than this. I mean, the New York stories is fine, but this feels like an incomplete thing to me. What I want is a 1,000-page Penguin volume of the complete stories of John OHara, which wouldn't be complete, or you could call them the collected stories of John OHara, something that's 1,000 pages long, and that comes close to giving a home to a significant fraction of the short stories that he wrote. The idea behind this book, the idea behind piecemeal selections like this, all of his novels should be. 10 North Frederick is not demonstrably better than these. There is no legitimate objective criteria by which you can say that Butterfield 8 or 10 North Frederick should be Penguin Classics, but The Horse Knows the Way or The Hat on the Bed or Pipe Night should not be. They should all be. They're all written in a very self-consciously even level of artistry. OHara was a writer. He didn't have pretense of doing anything else. Didn't value anything else. Didn't pour his energy into anything else. And was one of those writers who, when he squared himself in front of his typewriter, managed a level of quality that, in my opinion, very seldom varied between works, between projects. I don't think there's anything you can look at by John OHara and say, well, it's a failure. Now, there are some people who would say, some literary snobs who might say, well, then that means he had no genius. Maybe so, but his stories are incredible, and his novels are incredible. There's a trickle of recognition going on here at Penguin Classics or at Library of America, but I'd like more than a trickle. Library of America has published every single grocery list that John Updike has ever written. They have an endless shelf of the juvenilia that went on all the way to the end of his life by Kurt Vonnegut. But only 2 volumes of John OHara. There's something fundamentally unjust about that. These short stories, I think, will provide you, if you don't know this author, and most people don't, will provide you with a better reading experience, just a more enjoyable, more joltish reading experience than the novels. The novels are more of an undertaking, whereas the short stories, I think they're a better indication of this author's genius. And I loved rereading them in this Penguin volume when it came out, because I also loved rereading them in the Library of America volume. I think I wrote about a couple of these reissues, either one for Penguin and one for Library of America, or 2 for Library of America. If I remember, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I may not remember, but if I remember, I will find those reviews and post them with this video. But even though I had mass market paperbacks of all of John OHara, and they were all with the same faded photo covers, some of you will know right away what I'm talking about. I don't have all of those volumes anymore. I don't have the collected John OHara. I don't have everything that exists. And that's a little bit on the sad side. But when I got this volume from Penguin, I was overjoyed and dove back into these stories. Just they are so good, so adult and muscular and non-compromising, so sharp and perceptive in the way they perceive their characters. The characters are held under a merciless microscope, and I think a big reason why we don't credit this level of narrative power with John OHara comes from a very weird and very unworthy ultimate source, and that is interoffice spite. That took the form of a mega best-selling book called Here at the New Yorker by Brennan Gill, in which Gill writes about his time at the New Yorker and has an acid comment about virtually everybody that worked there. He tried to characterize it as affectionate banter, but one of his biggest victims in that book, aside from maybe James Thurber, was John OHara, who he remorselessly paints as a social climbing, talentless, clod Irish hack. And I think that took Here at the New Yorker sold more than anything that John OHara ever wrote in his life. It's possible, numbers are hard to come by, that it sold better than all of what John OHara wrote in his life. It was a mega bestseller for a long time, in hardcover and in paperback. And I think it set an idea of OHara in people's minds that is only Brennan Gill's idea. People, if somebody knows a little bit about John OHara, but not a lot today, usually it's been my experience at literary events and literary gatherings here at Hyde Cottage and earlier Hyde Cottages, that if somebody knows a little bit about John OHara, if his name comes up in conversation, that person will knowingly start to talk about OHara, and I will just sit there and listen, because what they're saying they got from Here at the New Yorker. They don't know anything else about the man, and they're taking that as gospel, and it's not. It's just spiteful interoffice gossip. I have tried to maintain a diplomatic silence when such things happen, but you can guess from this channel how successful I've been. I champion this author, the real author, not the caricature in Brendan Gill's venomous, very enjoyable, but venomous book. And The main thing I champion about him is his short stories. These are amazing. They are proto-Cheever. They're proto-Eudora Welty. They belong on the same shelf as those American greats, and they ought to have a volume that reflects it. They ought to have the collected John O'Hara. There have been some volumes, but I want a huge one. I want something that's enormous, that has a large selection of the short stories that he wrote. But these, even in the New York stories, they are just incredible, and they're so knowing. I can't read you the whole of any one of them, but I thought I would read you a bit of one of them to give you an idea of what O'Hara is like. This is a story, I think, from the 1960s. I don't know if these are dated. I don't know if these... Okay, I can't tell if these are dated. But this is from around the 1960s. And it's called Can I Stay Here? And the premise is the Central Park apartment of a famous actress who gets a visitor. Just a disaffected, moody, sullen young woman who comes unexpectedly to visit her, sort of semi-sent by her domineering father. And I want... let me see if I can get... let's see here. The actress has been warned ahead of time that the young woman is coming to visit her and wants advice on how to break into acting. I think that they order... the actress and her sort of live-in companion maid order a meal brought up to the room, and while they're waiting, they have this encounter, and I wonder. I think I've covered all the basics. I think you'll get it. I'll interpolate as we go along if there's something that comes up. There's very little in the way of he said, she said here. There's very little in the way of stage dressing. O'Hara was one of those authors who could rather effortlessly carry a conversation between two characters straight through page after page without ever telling you who's talking and without you ever getting confused about it. Virtuoso stuff. But I will probably have to identify. And from your father's note, I gather you've given up school. Are you serious about wanting to be an actress? Irene served the cocktail. That's the live-in companion. Served the cocktail, and the girl drank some of it. I don't know. I guess I am. I want to do something, and as soon as I mentioned the theater, Daddy said he knew you. I guess if you were a friend of Daddy's, you know how he operates. If I said I wanted to be in the Peace Corps, he'd fix it with President Johnson, or at least he'd try to. Well, I don't know about that, but your father was a very good friend of mine when we were younger. Not that I've seen him in, oh dear, before you were born. Oh, I know that. It's been Mrs. Castleton ever since I can remember. What's been Mrs. Castleton? Daddy's girlfriend. But your father and mother are still married, aren't they? Of course. Mommy's not going to give up all that loot, and why should she? Could I have another one of these? I'll get it if you don't want to bother. Well, yes, you may have to finish it at the table, meaning they're having their drinks now, but before she finishes it, the meal will be here. And that is sort of a comment on how fast the young woman drank the first drink, and also that they're waiting for food. But you won't get that. You have to pay attention in the scene like an adult. You have to pay attention to what's not being told. You may have to finish it at the table. Do you want to bet? The girl took her glass to a portable bar. First, Mommy said they'd stay married till after I came out, meaning had her was a debutante, came out to society. Although why that's important even in Baltimore. And then I came out, and nothing more was heard about a divorce. If Aunt Dorothy wanted him to get a divorce, he'd get it. But being Dorothy Castleton is still a little bit better socially than being Dorothy Blackwell, and they're all old. Get the Aunt Dorothy? Her father's girlfriend is his Aunt Dorothy. You can just picture that being said with withering contempt. She finishes up with, and they are all old. And you don't know if she's being thoughtless or pointed. Yes, we are. I didn't mean that personally, Mrs. Livingston. I don't know how else you could mean it, considering that I'm the same age as your father and your mother. I don't know about Mrs. Castleton, of course. Same age, all in their late 50s or early 60s, I guess. Anyway, not exactly the latest thing. Well, no. Well, Baltimore doesn't seem to be very different from any place else, does it? And meanwhile, your father asked me to have a talk with you about the theater, which I'm very glad to do. But you don't seem to have any burning, overwhelming desire to become an actress. I couldn't care less, frankly. It's Daddy that, as soon as I mentioned the theater. How did you happen to mention it, though? How did I happen to mention it? Well, I guess I said I wanted to do something, but when it came down to it, what could I do? We exhausted all the possibilities except riding in horse shows and modeling. So naturally you thought of going on the stage. No, I didn't. That was Daddy's idea. This whole thing was his idea. I think he just wanted to name drop that he knew you. I have no delusions about being an actress, for Christ's sake. Irene went to the door to admit the waiter with the rolling table. You would have lost your bet, said the girl. I won't have to finish my drink at the table. Well then, it isn't a question of my using my influence to get you into the American Academy or anything like that, said Teresa Livingston. I must say I'm relieved. I certainly wouldn't want to deprive a girl of a chance that really cared about the theater. Forget it. I'm sorry I wasted your time, but it wasn't all my fault. Daddy's a powerhouse, and when he gets an idea, he keeps after it until you give in. Shall we sit down? Why don't you sit there and I'll sit here, said Teresa. They took their places at the table, but the girl obviously had no intention of touching her melon. Would you rather have something else, said Teresa? Tomato juice or something like that? We wouldn't have to send downstairs for it. No, thanks. We're having eggs Benedict, said Teresa. Eggs Florentine, ma'am, said Irene. Don't worry about me, said the girl. Have you had any breakfast other than a vodka martini, said Teresa. Why don't you have a cup of coffee? Where's the bathroom, said the girl. Will you show her to the bathroom, Irene? Yes, ma'am. Just tell me where it is. Don't come with me, said the girl. Through that door, which leads to the bedroom, and the bathroom you can find, said Teresa. The eggs Florentine, said the girl. Eggs anything. She left the room quickly. I hope she makes it, said Irene. Yes, said Teresa. I think you'd better move this table out in the hall. Leave the coffee. I'll have some for myself now, and you might want to make some fresh. You're not going to eat any lunch? No. $9, right down the drain. I know, but I'm not hungry, so don't force me. Teresa had 2 cups of coffee and several cigarettes. I think I ought to go in and see how she is, she said. You want me to? Said Irene. No, I will, said Teresa. She went to the bedroom, and the girl was lying on the bed, clad in her slip, staring at the ceiling. Do you want anything, Evelyn? That's the girl's name. Yes, said the girl. What? Can I stay here a while? Child, you can stay here as long as you like, said Teresa Livingston. And that's the end of Can I Stay Here? And it's... What are you doing, baby? Are you bored? Huh? I was just about to talk about John O'Hara. Huh? One of his favorite dogs in the whole world was a miniature schnauzer. Yes. Oh, yes. He used to dandle that dog on his lap all the time. Yes. Long gone. Maybe your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. That's the end of the story. Can I Stay Here? And it gives you a sense of what John O'Hara does, which is to write a big atmospheric story and then take out all the atmosphere so that you're left doing a lot of the work with him. And that is just, for me, wonderful. Just wonderful. You get a lot of that sense of things in a good John Cheever story. And this is the same. The total realness of it, the lack of either posing or sentimentality, I just love it. And all the stories in this volume are like that. The point that I was trying to make about John O'Hara is that he was a uniform craftsman. He didn't tend to just toss off garbage because he had a berth at the New Yorker. Wrote an enormous number of short stories for the New Yorker, maybe a record. He knew the door was always open there for him, and that can tempt you, and it never did tempt him. As far as I was able to see, it never did tempt him. So your Penguin Classic for today is a strong recommend. It's 3 volumes. I'm not sure if Penguin did any more. I should check and see. I'm just assuming that they didn't, because I'm assuming that if they had, they would have sent them to me, which is, now that I think of it, kind of a bloated way to look at things. I should probably do the legwork and find out if maybe some clerk somewhere made a mistake. But there's also the Library of America, and there is an Everyman's Library, I believe, as well. And all of these are piecemeal, and I'm grateful for them, because I have the horrible sense that the piecemeal may be all that we get, and that there isn't ever going to be a big, wonderful, collected, complete reprint set of this author. It could be that in making these choices, Penguin has just decided that Butterfield 8 and 10 North Frederick are the two novels of his that deserve saving from the wreck. That might not be what they were thinking, but that is definitely not true. If you are at a yard sale or a flea market or whatever, or a library sale, and you encounter a bunch of John O'Hara, maybe in those old mass market paperbacks with the photo covers, if you encounter a bunch of John O'Hara, no matter what it is, Cape Cod lighter, anything, no matter what it is, if you encounter some of his and it's 10 cents, 25 cents each, get them all, because they're all great. You're gonna love them. and that might have to do. Maybe the next time I encounter a big raft of John O'Hara, I should pounce as well, because I'm not sure that I am sure that Library of America is never going to do justice by him. If they've done 2 volumes piecemeal, like dragging teeth out, and it doesn't look like Penguin Classics will ever do more justice than this. This is more than a lot of authors get. I could name you a lot of authors in the 20th century alone who are worth it and don't have even one Penguin Classic volume to call their own. So I'm not looking to give horse in the mouth, but your Penguin Classic today is a recommend. I could use more of it. That's why I'm going on this way, because this is a recommend that is impatient for more. And I'd be willing to bet that you will be impatient for more as well with this author, which is the yardstick that I like. It's the yardstick that I use most often. It's the metric that I most rely on, is that when I recommend something to you, I am mostly hoping that the thing itself will do the recommending, and that after that I won't need to keep it up, because I put a lot of stock in my recommendations. I'd be willing to bet if you try this author, especially the short stories, you will love them. But anyway, that's your Penguin for today. We're in the 30s to the 80s, so we're in the 20th century. Who knows what we'll be next time? I'm going to wrap this up for now and tend to my fussy little dog, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.